Hello, my fellow Westorians. Happy Saturday. Welcome back to a spoiler-filled preview for episode 7. You know how we do. Everything goes except leaks. We don't talk leaks. We talk Fire and Blood. We talk trailers. We talk interviews. We talk anything else we've learned from behind the scenes. Anything we can figure out, obviously. That's how it goes. Monday is for our non-spoiler spoiler streams post-episode. Today, to help us cover this monumental episode is what it's looking like it's going to be, is our good friend Jason from the official House of the Dragon podcast and X-Ray Vision podcast. You are a double-dealing podcaster, aren't you?
I'm. That is how I make my coin. Thank you so much for having me on. As you know, big fan for a long time.
Yeah, and we are fans of you as well. We're so happy to have you. This is great. So, how awesome has this been? Just this whole experience. We didn't know we would have such a great time. It was too much to hope for the show to be as good as it's been, but it is as good as it is.
Yeah, I've been reflecting on that a lot. I just think that it's a wonderful adaptation. I think it's something about the fact that the source material written as fictional history from the perspective of, various unreliable narrators, the adaptation is just inherently going to be more additive than a narrative story where you have to take out characters because there's so many and you have to just kind of boil it down to the main plot. Here it's like you can add context, you can add things, and even as a reader, I am surprised by things that are revealed, even though I know broadly, from reading how the war is going to turn out. It's a lot of things that the historians got wrong. And so that is a wonderful surprise and has been part of why this show has been really, really fun to watch.
Hell yeah. Very well said, my friend. That's a great take. I totally agree with you. It's really it really fits the source material. It really fits the way the material is delivered to us, and it gives the actors and writers, everyone, some room to do their own thing and put their own stamp on it without going off page, without going, too far afield from the intended, from what was intended. Yeah. Folks, you can catch these streams on YouTube live, of course. You can catch the replays afterwards, also on YouTube or on Spotify. And the podcast versions you can catch anywhere you get podcasts, again, like Spotify or Amazon Music, Google Play, iTunes, all that good stuff. So it seems like not only weddings and tournaments and hunts can go wrong, but now funerals too. Although it seems like maybe the funeral itself will be peaceful. It's just the afterwards will be intense, I suppose. How does that, does that sound about right to you, Jason? Good setup?
Yeah, I think so. Getting that whole family together, especially after Rhaenyra, has kind of like separated herself for the events of the last episode. I think that there's so many different things that each side is trying to accomplish, certain ambitions. There's certain characters that have more information, certain have less, and no one trust each other. And we're also at a point in history where, from my read on it, is Viserys, he had been trying so long for that male heir. Mm-hmm. Now he has several boys, as well as his daughter Helaena, and he has his grandchildren. And I think he's just taken his hand off the wheel a little bit, and that has allowed space for all of these competing factions to kind of very subtly and not so subtly begin wrestling for the scraps of whatever's left over when Viserys, shuffles off. And I think everybody being together for this funeral is going to provide a space for that kind of jostling for position.
Yeah, it's clever how they keep bringing everybody together like that, because when they're all together, stuff happens, right?
Yes, it does.
All right, we have a super chat from Met Fan Man who says, "Let's go Mets. Who do you think Larys will kill next? Who do you think he has killed in the past before he killed his family?" Ooh, what an interesting question. First of all, boo Mets. I'm a Braves fan, so I gotta represent. Who do you think Larys will kill next? That is a good question. There's a lot of possibilities there. I suppose that he's not done killing. Let's put it that way. And who has he killed in the past? Yeah, I mean,
who has he actually killed? Personally, but
I don't know if
who is he assigned someone to kill?
Ordered the death of is probably more like. I doubt he's done a lot of stabbing. Yeah, but But poisoning, maybe he's done that. I don't know. Maybe.
Sure. I will say, certainly the confidence with which he carried out his plan would seem to suggest that like this is not his first rodeo, so to speak.
Yeah, not the first time he's taken condemned men and sent them to. Like none of this seemed like old hat or new hat to
not
him.
At all. He was pretty sure it would work, and indeed it did.
Yeah, and he seemed to be enjoying himself. Like that was the biggest smile he had was when he sat down in front of those prisoners. Yeah, like that was the most legit smile he's had. That is a creepy man, but that's a good character.
Let me ask both of you, because I think, again, the way the show provides context has been wonderful. And one of the constant questions that you come away with from reading the novellas and Fire and Blood is, and the historians are asking this of themselves, what motivates Larys? What is his deal? You hear it time and time again. Which side is he on? What is he doing? Why did he do the things he does? I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that now, having gotten a taste of a little Larys the Clubfoot.
I wonder if it's anything other than somewhat standard power. He wants to be powerful. He wants to be as powerful as he can. He has a dog-eat-dog view of the world, and the only way to protect yourself is to have power, more power than everybody else, or as much power as you can. What do you think, Shay?
Yeah, that's about what I would say I thought before the season, and I think it's kind of the simplest answer, but it's just what makes sense, is that power is important anywhere, but especially in this world. And I think that's enough of a reason to motivate someone to kill their family. Like, some people thought, well, why would he kinslay or whatever? Because like that is extreme. But
that is extreme.
To get
very extreme,
to get one of the highest seats in the land doesn't seem that extreme. Like Harrenhal is like a pretty good prize.
It would be interesting if he killed one of his own family early on and like had the Euron thing and was like, well, I never suffered consequences, so I proved to myself the gods aren't real, so all these rules can be broken. Something along those lines. There's no evidence that happened, but that would be fitting. That'd be a little too much like Euron, probably, but it would fit.
And certainly the curse is a or so-called curse, depending on your perspective, is a wonderful way for him to kind of avoid any kind of suspicion.
Pretty clever.
Well, that's cursed. What are you gonna do?
The play. What can you do? Heron. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I watched the whole season over again this week. My mother drove up from Florida because of the hurricane, and she's already gone back. But we watched the whole season together. She hadn't seen it at all. The second Larry Strong came on screen in that third episode, she said, "Is that Alicent's lover?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, she's not far off. I mean, that's not what happens, but he might be into her. Like the way he looks at her, he might be attracted to her. I don't think they're ever going to hook up, but I was like, wow, Mom, that's really close to what's, like he definitely immediately sidles up to her. So like she was pretty close.
I think you both hit on something too. I think that is from a character point of view, his brother, the heir to Harrenhal, and was R.I.P. the most physically fit, strongest man in the realm by reputation. And it seems certainly that Lord Lionel doted on his son, and we've seen in this world, if you don't conform to the kind of physical mold of what a masculine warrior man is, you're going to be on the outside of society. Tyrion, for example, and I think Larys, whereas Tyrion dealt with that in one way, I think Larys is maybe dealing with that in another way, which is poisoned, toxic jealousy that finds voice in murder.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing to combine the highborn aspect with his disfigurement, with his malformed foot. And that's an unusual combination of characteristics for Westeros, because being highborn obviously is like being a demigod, being a much higher social status. But then you have like what you're saying, where his foot makes him looked down on by a lot of people, which is something he leans into, like Aikido. They're not going to pay attention to me. Well, I'm going to learn all their secrets. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the way he shows up in that third episode, where he's I can't go on the hunt because obviously I can't go, but if I could just rest my bones here for a moment, ladies, please continue your conversation, and I'll just sit here. Don't mind me.
It's super good. Yeah, there may be maybe there's a little hatred at the world. Maybe like he hates people because of how he's been treated, the way they treat him because of his handicap, and I wonder if that's part of what fuels him. Very interesting character. We'll have more to say on him. Let's go to Driftmark first. It really seems like this is an interesting episode because even though what I said at the beginning, where there's so many of the most momentous quotes, and from Fire and Blood, we know a lot's going to happen in this episode. But from the trailers or just the screenshots, it looks kind of just like, oh, there's a funeral. Some stuff is going to happen. There's people staring off screen at things that are happening, but it's maybe the least revealing set of trailer scenes, which is obviously masks that there's going to be a lot happening. But a lot of it will take place at Driftmark. It seems like maybe 2/3 of the episode will take place there. I'm just guessing. I don't really know that, but there's a moment starting off where Rainey seems to drop a pair of earrings on a table, and I'm guessing those are Laena's. Maybe this is how they receive word that she's passed. Maybe Daemon sends this ahead or something, because there's no body. She was burned to a crisp. Not that he would send that first anyway. That would be a little awkward.
But no, I put it up on screen, but you can see this behind the scenes shot. It does look like the earrings that Laena is wearing.
Okay.
It's very hard to get a shot of her earrings because her hair is so big and covers her ears always. Yeah. But that is what it looks like to me as well.
I guess those are pretty strong earrings. They survived the dragon fire.
Yeah, they're Valyrian steel earrings, perhaps. I don't know.
So it's a small change from Fire and Blood. In the books, it's Laenor's funeral where all this happens, which, by the way, I suppose that's almost certainly happening. Actually, it's definitely happening this episode because there's a time jump after this episode, and there's almost no way they're changing things that much where Laenor isn't killed this episode. So that's a big deal. There's some evidence of it. There's some screenshots from the trailer where there's multiple fights inside Driftmark. There's like Daemon fighting someone on the stairs, and then Daemon, someone else in the Hall of Nine. So Daemon's doing stuff. And then there's Laenor and someone sitting by the fire. By the fire?
Yeah, I was going to say.
The fire.
The fire. Stuff happening. So two different sea snake lines, as I said. The other one, besides people don't remember blood, they remember names. The other one is, what is this brief mortal life if not the pursuit of legacy? I'm not sure that line is said about Laena, given how young. That's not an odd thing to say about someone who died in their 20s. So I'm wondering any thoughts on what this refers to?
I mean, I thought you had a thought on it before, right? Aziz?
Did I? I don't remember what it was.
Was this not the line that you thought that was part of the conversation with Luke and Jace?
No, I think the next one is.
Oh, okay.
People don't remember blood, they remember names. That one I think is definitely aimed at Luke and their bastardy. Like it's the same kind of it's similar to what Jace was asking his mom.
I kind of think I guess my thought is that it's about the same subject.
Okay, yeah,
maybe it's not to the young boys, but it's also about the subject of whether the Velaryon strong boys are truly Velaryon. That was my impression.
That's how I read it as well, is kind of Corlys saying, we're kind of suggesting that Corlys is, whatever the views of some people within the realm about the parentage of Jace, Luke, and Joffrey, we're doubling down on this. Mm-hmm. People don't remember blood, they remember names. They'll remember that they're Velaryons. We're doubling down on this. And this is how we cement our legacy, whatever that means to Corlys.
Yeah, I wonder from the kids' perspective, like how all this looks. It's really interesting. We've always considered it, I think, as readers, as watchers, mostly our default is think about it from the adult's point of view. But they are challenging us to try to think about it from the children's point of view a bit by having these great actors give great performances and show their uncertainty and show their like, well, am I a bastard? And what would that be like for an 8-year-old or 10-year-old? Or you meet your famous grandfather and he doesn't look anything like you. Like he looks really different. You're a white boy with brown hair and you see this like very black man with silver dreadlocks. And you're like, that's my granddad? Like interesting. Like, So I got to think for someone who's older, you kind of get how genetics works, and it's not so strange, maybe. But for an 8-year-old, you might be like, really?
And then at the same time, like the dragon eggs hatched.
Yeah.
The Aemond's. Where's Aemond's dragon? There's other. They could if they wanted to, could latch on to certain things that would give them confidence in who they are. But certainly it can't be, you really feel how much anxiety they have about their own identity, particularly at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
It's just like, what's the truth of this? I'm a bastard. Harwin Strong seemed like he was hanging around a lot. And he certainly took an interest in us.
He was always hanging out, taking us, escorting us. He was a really nice guy.
He was always here.
That's the kind of thing you just like don't, when you're like older, you just like, well, not that these kids will have a chance to be older, but when you're like, if you grew up that way and you're like, one day you're like 25, you're like, that guy really did take a lot of interest in us. Like, you're like thinking back, like, I didn't realize that when I was a kid, but damn, that guy was.
Those posts where people suddenly realize, like, oh, wait, I think maybe my sister was my mother, actually. Like, my mother is my grandma. Oops.
Oh, confusing. Very confusing life of a Velaryon Targaryen bastard. So yeah, I'm very eager to hear those conversations. I'm sure they've handled these character moments so well, written really good dialogue for it. So I'm curious to see what that does.
And it's been just fascinating. Obviously, like as a reader, one of the first things I'm sure everyone thought about when this show was announced was, okay, flashbacks or time jumps, because this takes place over 30 years. How are they going to do it? So it's been really, really wonderful to get these really great performances from these child actors, like across the board. And then the younger versions of, both Alicent and Rhaenyra were wonderful as well. That's been really cool.
Yeah.
So obviously they've gone with time jumps for season 1. Do you think it's possible that for a future season that they would do flashbacks? One, do you think it's possible? And 2, do you want it? I guess those are 2 questions.
I feel like there's more to learn about Aegon the Conqueror I feel like we will get that in flashback, obviously, if it happens. I think that's the most likely thing for
you think flashback, not a full season of Aegon the Conqueror, of Aegon's conquest?
No, but I think that we flash back to stuff to add context to the overriding kind of like prophecy and mission. But I would guess that we're going to stay with this format going forward. If there is, a large gap in time between events, we'll probably see more time jumps.
I wonder if this is proving to other studios or other creators that these time jumps can work in other shows, because we've seen other shows do it now. It's becoming, I wouldn't say it's common, but it's more and more. Yeah, I think more and more time jumps are being done. Vikings did it.
The Crown
The
was
Witcher
maybe
did it. The Crown did it.
Template for
a lot
this.
Of big budget, like multi-season shows, and sometimes they do it just to set up future seasons. Sometimes it's just part of it. Like on The Crown, I think it was like in the middle, right? Or I don't know The Crown very well, but like The Witcher,
seasons,
it was season 1, and then they slowed the time jumps down, and then I think a lot of shows will do that, where they do a season 1 of time jumps and then kind of slow it down. I'm not sure. In Viking's case, it was very early season 2 where they did the time jumps. So
it's my understanding that The Crown was between seasons, was all the time jumps. It wasn't within each season.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, they had one each
for the
season.
most part. Yeah, like multiple. Okay. Like, so I think sometimes it was the same actor for a couple of seasons, but then they switch.
So that is a little
different. Because huge time, it passes in that show. But so it's a bit different. But I still think maybe the most similar template wise for House of the Dragon to compare it to those other shows.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess we'll see how they do that. Maybe that, because obviously there's so many other, just within this world, just when possible adaptations within Westeros or Essos, it shows them that can be done. Like the Sea Snake show or Nymeria or any of these things, they could do time jumps if needed. So that's nice to see. Tracy McMillan, longtime patron, pointed out a nice parallel. Show Ned telling Jon Snow, "You may not have my name, but you have my blood." And we have Show Rhaenyra telling Jacaerys, "You're a Targaryen. That's all that matters." And then whatever conversations Corlys has as well. That's really good. Really good.
That is
parallel.
Important too to note that, as many people I'm sure have asked you over this week, what's up with the hair? Can you be half Targaryen and have Jon Snow being the prime example? Rhaegar, the half Targaryen, half Stark, brown hair. Luckily for him, or else he probably would have bought it very early in infancy.
Oh, yeah, that'd be harder to pull.
But it happens. It just happens.
It does just happen. We have, and even in the Targaryen family, I mean, Baelor Breakspear had brown hair and purple eyes. Aegor, Bittersteel had brown hair. Yeah, there's plenty of brown-haired Targaryen descendants, even if they weren't all full-blooded, so to speak. So we have Vhagar returning to Driftmark, clearly in order for Aemond to tame him, or her, rather. And that's obviously a big deal. Vhagar claiming Aemond. It's a huge power shift for the greens and blacks.
Claiming Aemond.
Yeah. Is that what I said? Vhagar claiming Aemond. Hey, it's like when a pet chooses you. You know, the cat adopts you, the dog adopts you, the dragon adopts you. And in the go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna finish, and then I want to get your both of your takes on something.
Cool.
That
Oh yeah, so I was gonna say Vhagar claims Aemond, or Aemond claims Vhagar. I have it in no wonder I keep saying that. I wrote it. Vhagar claimed by Aemond. In the books, Viserys suggests after the funeral that they could pass by Dragonstone on the way, so Aemond can have a dragon if the lad is bold enough. He's like, trying to prick his courage a little bit, like trying to motivate him. We'll reverse psychology there. Works a little more well than he might have thought. There we get that cliff climbing scene from way back in the trailers. That seems to be Aemond here. So that's pretty exciting. I really wonder how they're going to play this. It seems like they're going to involve not just Jace and Luke, but Baela and Rhaena will be from the trailer. Baela or Rhaena are waking up Jace and Luke saying someone's stolen Vhagar. It's a very cute way to deliver news of a giant dragon being stolen. Wouldn't quite work in the books because Baela and Rhaena are 4. They've been aged up a little bit here, so they're all appropriate age. And it makes a lot of sense to have them involved in this saga of their mother's dragon getting taken.
Absolutely.
Whereas Joffrey's a bit younger here. So they're kind of taking on his role, I suppose.
Yeah, you're right. That makes total sense. That is fitting, and I think it's appropriate. Yeah, and Joffrey's a little younger, so that's it all lines up nicely. And of course, they see Vhagar as theirs, since not only was she Helena's, but Vhagar lived on Driftmark, which is obviously that's the Velaryon home. So it seems like she's sort of theirs, but that changes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if there's a vacant dragon, let's waste no time in claiming that dragon. Let's not lean on. Well, it was my mom's. I think, obviously. Let's get on that as quickly as possible. I wanted to ask you about one of the things that really caused my jaw to gape last episode, which is Helaena very quietly as she's playing with her bugs. Alicent goes off to talk to a handmaiden who's bringing news that Aemond has once again snuck into the bottom of the dragon pit. And Alicent saying, your obsession with a dragon, you'll get one eventually, something to that effect. And then Helaena says he'll have to close an eye.
Yeah, so good.
Immediately I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to be paying attention to everything Helaena says.
Every little word. She's now like Patchface or something.
Yeah. And do you read this as her having something of the Targaryen dreamer-ness about her?
Yeah, I think definitively there's zero doubt. Right? Helaena is a dragon dreamer. I really, really want her to talk to Viserys, and I really want a scene with her. I want Viserys to be aware of this. I don't know if we'll see that, but is my hope.
Standing next to each other at the funeral.
Yeah, you're right.
Gives us a little hope there.
I do have hope there. The line for me that's the question, for sure. He has to close an eye. That's prophetic. The line for me that I'm not sure whether it's a misdirect or a real prophecy, a prophetic line, is the last ring has no legs, which people have been debating in the fandom because there's 2 possible interpretations of that. One, the last king has no legs, as in Bran Stark. It's a reference to Bran Stark.
Right.
2, it's a reference to Aegon too, who also becomes disabled in that way.
Oh yeah.
I think that one is possibly just more of the misdirect and not actually a prophetic line, and that the other one is, but I'm not sure. I don't feel strongly about that one, but I do think for sure the other one is.
Yeah, the other part that fits with the Bran really nicely that I don't think we mentioned is the whole idea of opening your third eye in darkness and things like that, which is also in the caves and the millipedes, sightless creatures that live in those caves. That fits pretty well. Well, let me ask you a question, Jason. Based on this,
sure,
the rabbit hole of Helaena as a dreamer, it opens up a
wow.
lot of possibilities. One that really hits me with the sads is thinking about her dreaming about blood and cheese and the fate that's coming for her and her own children, which is like, damn, painful.
And it makes me wonder, because obviously, certainly in the way it felt like she delivered the line about Aemond closing an eye. It felt like it's unclear to me whether she knew what she was saying or if she was just kind of, something just
she's a conduit
appears in her head and she just I don't know that she processes it that much. And so if indeed she has an inkling about what is to occur with blood and cheese, I wonder if she would react to that kind of dragon dream in a different way, in a way that's obviously more intimate, is more present for her and for her family, and is more more actually tragic. I wonder how she will react to that kind of dream if indeed she has one. And if anybody would even listen to her, if anybody would, because people just dismiss her, because she is a different person, and we know from the source material that she was seen as, more artistic, interested in kind of frivolous things that
don't make the history
not
books.
Having things that don't make the history books. So I wonder how people would react to a dream coming from this person. Would they even take it seriously? My sense is no, tragically.
I think Viserys would listen.
Wonder,
and maybe Rhaenyra even, because she's been kind of like normalized to be cut through her father to believe in these dreams. But whether her, like Helena's brothers might not listen to her, or Alicent might not listen to her, or something like that.
Yeah, I really wonder Alicent's reaction is the one I really wonder if she'll ever have any inkling of what her daughter's got going on there in that head of hers.
Because
it's interesting too to go ahead, please. It's interesting too to think about, because when these Targaryen dreams happen, it's not like there's some trumpet that blares at, this is a real one. Hey, listen to this. Like there's no outward signal. It is in that sense like really a real accomplishment that Daenerys the Dreamer was able to like convey this in a way that so forcefully that her family listened. But like, would they there's no outward kind of signal that this is, hey, listen to what this person is saying because it's real. I wonder if maybe Alicent will I wonder if anyone will make the connection, or if Alicent being in that room will make the connection having heard it, or if it's just Helaena just saying stuff and you just kind of tune it out.
Yeah, they could make the connection after that, because it's with Daenerys. My guess is that she proved herself. She predicted enough things, and like I doubt the doom was the first thing she predicted, especially since they listened to her. Right. It seems like a lot to believe one dream out. So she must have proved herself. So I wonder if Helaena will get the chance. I kind of doubt she will, but maybe she will. Maybe she'll convince a few people. Maybe there's some people that don't have enough power to do anything. Like she convinces people that are not the ones who need to be convinced, like Alicent and her family. Maybe some lesser people will be convinced.
Selfishly, also, I hope blood and cheese doesn't happen this season, because I don't know that I have it in me.
We've been guessing for a while that it'll be the beginning of season 2. I'm holding to that prediction, but we'll see. Because just in terms of casting, they have to like cast different people for it, and what a way to start the season, just with a shocking moment. They love to do that. That would be ultra shocking. Yeah. I wonder if like Helaena will start to get uneasy around rats or something like that. That would be a really interesting way to show it.
Right?
Yeah, certainly after.
Now this, I mean, this is Joe Magician has a notable theory that's making the rounds about Larys potentially being.
He just popped up in the chat, by the way. How's it going, Joe?
Hey! Rats being involved with that. I think that I love that theory. I don't know if I subscribe to it, but to me, the rats. I always read the rats as foreshadowing of blood and cheese.
Yeah.
Rat. That of letting us know, hey, there's a lot of rats, and they move around in mysterious ways because of these passageways. That would have been something that the king and the people managing the castle would have wanted to get under control, and they're just putting that in our minds. That's how I always read it.
I take it as foreshadowing, but also showing why it's able to happen, because these rats are here, so they have to hire it. So it kind of works on multiple levels there.
Yeah, I agree with that. So regardless of how Alicent reacts to any dreams, we know how she's going to react to the loss of her son's eye, and that, of course, is going to be a big part of what happens in this episode. It's going to facilitate further problems. It's a really cleverly done moment. I think maybe some people were like, wow, Alicent grabbing a dagger. That's because that was a big deal in the trailers early on. It was one of the first scenes they really wanted us to think about, that line. Now they see you as you are. Like that, yet another line from the early trailers that is in this episode. That's at least 4 big ones that were repeated over and over before the season. So that's really huge. I love the detail. I love how they pulled things from Fire and Blood and use them as evidence of what their personality is like. When much later in the war, when Alicent has lost most of her family and she's just the queen in chains, Alicent Chains, of course. It says in Fire and Blood that she was known to snatch daggers from guards and just go after people. Like she just became like kind of manic or manically violent. And so this is a really good use of that one-liner. They're like, well, let's just do that a little earlier, or this would put that kind of pressure on her where she would just kind of blow up and yeah. I mean, what a big moment. Like that's going to be
huge moment.
Yeah.
What if you're the King's Guard? What do you do?
What do you do? You're like, grab.
What do you do?
You...
The Queen is going after the crown heir. What do you do? What happened? What do we do?
They're all just stunned. They're like,
you just take a break, bathroom break. Just like, I'll be right back.
Oh, I wasn't here for that. I couldn't have.
Yeah.
And presumably, this also starts the other big fight that carries forward as well, which is Aemond mocking his cousins or his half brothers and I guess he wouldn't call Baela and Rhaena Strongs because they're not Strongs, but certainly Jace and Luke. And in the book, we hear that they question him about, like, where did you hear that? And he says, I heard it from my brother. And his brother says, everyone knows. Just look at them. And, well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of true. But then we get in the book, Viserys says, anyone who calls them Strongs from here on out loses their tongues. He comes down hard on this because he wants to prevent civil war, which, hey, okay, good move, Viserys, I suppose. And this, of course, sets up the appetizer succession struggle, the driftmark succession struggle, which is it's like the mini micro succession struggle that presages the major one, which is Aemond, brother of Corlys. In the books, he's a nephew. Not a big difference, really. So he's going to
not a big difference, but I think a significant one in the show, in that it does give a lot more meaning to this.
Either way,
not big as in it matters, but big as in I like it more.
Okay, yeah. Either way, he's jumping over Baela and Rhaena. So either way, he's kind of usurping someone.
Yeah, that's true. He is jumping over Baela and Rhaena unless he doesn't really care about female succession, which is valid.
And second sons have been such a theme in this.
Yeah, that's true.
Season.
Seizing,
the kind of the jealousy, the feelings of being cast aside, of not, obviously it's not that bad being a second son, but the gap in terms of prestige and material wealth is immense. And to Shai's point, I think for me, I do like this change because you kind of understand inherently what Vaemon's problem is because of all the second son talk that we've already seen between, with Daemon and with Corlys talking about similar subjects with Daemon, and you kind of get it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and it also sets up, and of course this won't end, assuming they keep it similar to the books. They'll have Vaemon's descendants will continue to press this issue. Vaemond himself, master of complaints, will complain most fiercely. That was a nice setup, make him the master of complaints for this moment. He's going to be, I guess, pop up in this episode, maybe to help set up the next episode, because that should be episode 8 where he makes his move, because I guess Corlys will get sick, maybe like in the books, and then he won't actually die.
I think it's worth noting. I mean, like, again, this is Laena's uncle. When we see her at the wedding feast, that's who she's sitting with at dinner. Like, they probably were not close. Like it seems like they knew each other well enough to have a nice conversation. So this means something to Aemond too, I guess. Is what
I wonder if he was like a Daemon, where he was like angling to marry her.
Oh my
He's
God.
like, I want to marry my my niece.
I think he's got a wife and kids. Is what it seems that he
Yeah,
has
I think
his
you're right.
brood of children already. At
Yeah,
least.
he's too old to be unmarried. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Aziz, you mentioned Viserys coming down hard, saying I'm gonna have some tongues ripped out. I think one of the changes from the books that I've enjoyed pretty much all of them, but I love the additional context, and Patty Considine is doing such a great job, because in the source material it's like Viserys is weak, he's a weak guy, but Patty brings. There's a real generosity, like he's trying. Viserys is a nice guy. He cares about collaboration. He's trying to get as many viewpoints as he can. Unfortunately, it does present as weak at times, and I think this is one of those times where I felt like, okay, Viserys, but now you got to rip the tongues out. Now you got to do it.
Got to actually do it.
Like some people have to actually lose their tongues now, or else we're just gonna have this war.
Yeah. And I guess we'll get that in episode 8, maybe. I don't know if they're going to do that, but I feel like he's going to pull some tongues out. Yeah. So we'll have more tongue pulling this year. We've already gotten a little bit of that with Larys, and now we go a little farther with that. In the books, there's a lot of dragons at driftmark, and according to some things we've heard, we're going to see a lot of them. I guess that's going to be something they kept secret from the trailers. Don't give much hint to that. The only thing you really see is Vhagar, which we know is a big part of this. But there's apparently going to be other dragons that we get to see, which is pretty exciting, because there's some we have yet to see. We haven't seen Sunfire or Arax or who else haven't we seen? There's a few others, but
we haven't seen Moondancer.
Oh yeah, Moondancer, of course.
Vela's dragon, notably.
But she has been referenced, but we haven't seen her yet. And so that's pretty interesting. And there's a quote from Fire and Blood. It says, "So many dragons were present that Septon Eustace wrote that Driftmark had become the new Valyria." Yeah, that's a great quote, and that is what we're hoping to see. We're the second age of dragons. Viserys kind of like getting a preview of what he wanted, sort of.
Yeah, Sunfire is known to be a particularly glorious-looking dragon, so I think there's a lot of hype over seeing Sunfire in particular.
Are we definitely going to see Sunfire? Do we know for sure?
Yeah, that's what people are saying, is that
cool.
we're going to see Sunfire.
Yeah,
so
that's exciting. That's exciting. It's so interesting to think about how like every second of dragon is an investment for the studio.
It's like $12 million or something. Yeah, some ridiculous figure.
Yeah, like that. No, that's Sunfire. That dragon better look good, because that's what it cost. Let's take a few questions here. We've got a nice little build up, so we should get to them before they really pile up. Morley says, just a show of love and appreciation for all the fabulous content, interviews, and live streams. Larys reminds me of a combination of Varys, Littlefinger, and Euron. Yeah, he really does. He really does. He's got that the kinslaying of Euron, the going for the woman maybe thing with Littlefinger, and the like no one notices me kind of thing, and of course the name and the little birds or little bugs in his case for Varys, and so what are any other basic comparisons that you see that fit between those three? Because I really think that's a good way to put it. Like, he has a lot of the qualities of some of the top master whisper types we've seen.
For Varys, I would also compare Varys being a eunuch with Larys having a clubfoot, and that it's a thing that people underestimate about him. Not in that they're like
a reason
the same thing, but
to underestimate
a reason to underestimate them. Exactly. And I guess Littlefinger also being like a smaller, more petite man. He has a little bit of that as well.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I said it earlier, but I think that he's like a dark reflection of Tyrion in a lot. The way Tyrion might have gone had Tyrion allowed the kind of bad things that had happened to him to really kind of internalize.
If he acted on some of his darker thoughts,
which clearly Larys has done.
Yeah,
both very brilliant men who understand how power is wielded. Larys going about it in a much different way.
He's a lot more amoral. Yeah, Tyrion has scruples.
Yeah.
Tyrion has some compassion. Yeah, maybe not as much as he could have, but way more than Larys. Karina Strick sends a super chat from New Zealand. Hey, you sticker. Thanks for the love from way down there. We appreciate that, Karina. Brandolin Price says, Daemon might be a dreamer. He isn't sleeping, drinking a lot, and he's reading a ton about his family history. It makes you think Rhaenyra is going to show him the dagger and tell him about the prophecy. That last bit's something we've talked about briefly on and off. And yeah, I wonder about that a lot, because one thing that I think it was Sean that pointed this out. Either way, it's a good take that it might make Daemon feel a little betrayed by his brother to find out that Viserys didn't trust him with his secret. What do you think about that, Jason?
Yeah, I think that being understanding that one of the things that the primary thing that drives Daemon, I think, is just wanting that attention from his brother all the time, wanting to be close to him, doing things to act out so that his brother would have to talk to him and communicate with him and have him around, and being mad that he sent him away, etc. I think he would have feelings about not being taken into his confidence about the dagger if indeed he finds out about it. And regarding him being a dreamer, again, back to back to the idea that the dreams may happen, but how do you know that they're significant? I wonder if Daemon is a dreamer, would he even take the things that he is being shown or that happen in his dreams or that he's thinking about, would he even take them seriously in that way?
Is he stubborn enough for that? Or he might not be. Yeah. The quote that someone pointed out last week that was really illuminating in that regard is how he drinks himself. He wants a few hours of oblivion, which that sounds like Daron the drunkard, for example, or someone like that, like a milder version of that. Like Daemon is a lot stronger, has more mental fortitude, I think, but he may just also may have milder dreams if he does have them at all.
Yeah, I guess my two thoughts on that. One, I feel like Daemon would bring up his dreams to Viserys if he was having them, right? Like I don't know if I it feels like Daemon knows that Viserys has dreams, so if he knows that, wouldn't he in turn bring it up to his brothers? That's my question there. Joe Magician points out the line from the trailer where Daemon says, "Dreams didn't make us kings, dragons did," as an idea that maybe that's Daemon saying that in response to learning about Aegon's dream.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah. That's a good point. Maybe he's pushing back, which would be evidence that he would downplay his own dreams if he's having them, just to kind of... That's a really fascinating idea. Yeah,
that's interesting.
I do think that is that quote maybe in this episode. We know for sure.
No, we don't know when that'll be. We just know.
I mean, we're running out of time for it.
So. In the trailer, I would guess it was towards the end of the season.
It could be a little later. Yeah, maybe he isn't. Maybe he doesn't tell her yet, or maybe she hasn't told him yet, but she will tell him like next episode or the episode after. That's a great call. Yeah.
I was kind of guessing that Rhaenyra would tell Daemon after Viserys died.
Oh,
I don't know. Okay, that was just, I realize now that was my assumption, but I don't really know where I was coming from. And
she could maybe tell him as she's telling her kids or one of her kids, maybe like
yeah, that's true.
Because she might tell Jace at some point. Maybe tells both Jace and Luke. I think Joffrey's still too young for that, but
yeah, I mean, I do for sure think she'll tell Jace. I don't know that I think she'll tell Luke too, because I think it has been told to her very much as like a you tell the heir type of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Not you tell all your kids. Though I think you should tell all your kids, but that isn't how it was told to her.
Yeah.
I wonder if, my sense is no, but I wonder if Alicent ever comes into contact with the prophecy.
Yeah.
In any kind of way. And how, if at all, Aegon too would learn about it, if indeed he does.
That is a great question. Yeah, we wondered about that too. It seems like Viserys is not told. He's just like, nope, my heir is Rhaenyra. She's got kids. There's no need to put this on the other part of my family.
He's been very, very strong about this the entire time.
Yeah. Nick Spenodakis says, folks, I sent that werewood dragon on Twitter. Oh, I missed it somehow. We'll check that out. Appreciate that, Nick. He drew us made a fantastic werewood dragon. And of course, you can imagine the colors with the werewood dragoning going on there. Really cool.
Raven's dragon.
Blood Raven's dragon. If Blood Raven had a dragon, that's what it would look like. Well, we appreciate that, Nick. We'll check that out as soon as the stream is over and share it around. Nancy Gross says, this is us did time jumps both ways. Multiple casts of the main characters, and we recognize multiple. Okay, good call. I haven't seen that show, but I hear good things about it. TKOK Podcast Network sends a super chat. Says, question for Jason. NBA player comps for major hot D players. Daemon, Rhaenyra, Alicent, Kristen, and Viserys. You got anyone come to mind for any or all of those characters?
Oh, gosh. Daemon would be kind of like... Oh, man.
Is Daemon Kyrie Irving?
Like, wow,
that's a good one. Extremely talented.
Crazy,
in terms of offensively, an incredible player. Nobody will want to mess with Kyrie Irving on the court, but like coming at things from an angle that nobody really expects, and nobody is. It would be very hard to put your trust in a person like Kyrie, similar to Daemon. Gosh, Rhaenyra is a good one. NBA player comps for Rhaenyra. Here's the thing about Rhaenyra. I don't know that we've had flashes, right? We saw her at the small council chamber, I think giving pretty wise counsel regarding the kind of continuing feud between the Blackwoods and the Brackens when that issue comes up. We don't have a feel for her as a ruler. I think we have a good feel for her as a person. So it's hard to do a comp for her yet, because while I think she's grown into her responsibility, she's also in a particular place where she's not getting. I think Viserys could be supporting her more. He's been pretty outspoken, but he could be doing more, I think. And she's also kind of isolated at court. Laenor is doing his own thing. She doesn't really have any allies, certainly not the same way that Alicent does. She doesn't have I guess Harwin, but like R.I.P. Yeah. And so, it's hard to know how she plays the game at this point. That's what I would say. That's a good point. Do you disagree?
No, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, we've only seen, some of us have only seen one episode of adult Rhaenyra, so yeah, she is more of a take charge commander type. Like, she might be like the team captain, or maybe someone who plays with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, but also is very proud. I think of
Alicent is like.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
My quick idea for Kristen was, what's someone who hates his old team? Switch teams and really hates his old team. Like, he feels betrayed by the team he used to play for, the team he came up with, and he hates them now. That's the only thing I've got for him.
I was thinking kind of like Pat Beverly, who now plays on the Lakers, but had a notable feud with Russell Westbrook, who he now has to play with for a long time. Kristen, as an outspoken person who was often taking shots at his old team, I think Pat Beverly pre this season would remind me of somewhat of
nice.
the unhinged Kristen Cole. You can feel, it's interesting too to watch him after the time jump, and you can really feel the kind of psycho Kristen Cole coming out.
That's good acting by Fabian Frankel, because like you do rewatch the first few episodes, and he has this gentler, more puppy dog look to him, and then like he's more like the bulldog kind of look in the later episodes.
Angry,
he just has his furrowed brow. He just looks severe and sour and toxic, and a good job by Fabian Frankel for sure.
Yeah, just showing that demeanor. It's hard to like project a whole different demeanor like all the time. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Viserys would be like Jerry Sloan, or not Greg Popovich, but like Jerry, like an older coach who maybe hung on for a little too long and was not as effective in the later years.
That makes sense. I like it. All right, let's move to King's Landing. I figure we got to have some shots at King's Landing. We have Otto's return. I don't suppose the first time we'll see Otto will be at the funeral.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. There's this great bit in Fire and Blood where Viserys almost names Rhaenyra as his hand, because that would make sense to prepare her for the rule. We've seen lots of times where the hand of the king is the heir. There's several examples of that. But he doesn't, because of the acrimony between the blacks and greens. And there's this other quote about his health here. I'll read it. His grace had reached the age of 43 and had grown quite stout. He no longer had a young man's vigor and was afflicted by gout. Hey, that rhymes. Aching joints, back pain, and a tightness in the chest that came and went and oft left him red-faced and short of breath and unable to rest. No, I added that last bit so it would rhyme too. But so they've obviously accelerated that a bit for the show to great effect for the storytelling. It works really well, but it shows how it's easier to get things past him. He's just tired. He doesn't care, because that's a good way, like a really simple way to describe his particular brand of misrule. It's not what he does; it's what he doesn't do.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
He's just too lax. He's too lenient. So, but the worse his health gets, the more lenient he is, because you see Alicent, like last episode, like, okay, his grace needs to rest now, and he's like, yeah, I do.
Yes, I do need to rest. Yeah.
It's easy to kind of ship him around and do that. Yeah.
An X-Ray Vision listener named Nathan emailed me with a great point that Grandmaster Melos doesn't get the appropriate props for keeping Viserys alive. He got a lot of criticism in being like, well, poultice or leeches. I'm going to go with the leeches. It's like some people thought, oh, is he perhaps conspiring against the king? Like, is he in on some kind of plot? How about a little bit of praise for keeping the king alive 10 years when it really didn't seem like it was going to happen? Viserys was looking pretty rough.
He actually looks a little better now, doesn't he? Yeah.
He has more energy. He's enjoying the training down in the yard.
This is the stuff.
Happier. This is the stuff, isn't it, Lionel? So shouts to Grandmaster Bellows. He's doing a better job than people are giving him credit.
There's a great that's a fair point. Maybe. I mean,
although we pointed out that in this time it's no longer Mellos in charge, it's Orwell. So at some point it's switched.
Again, like the laying the track that allowed him to get here.
Yeah. And it looks like we are going to get Girardis too. And we're wondering if there was going to be a Girardis and an Orwell, but you can see from shots of what are probably episode 10, maybe episode 9, there's the scene where they're gathering the Black Council, and there's a white maester standing there, and obviously Orwell is not white, so that kind of gives it away. That's a different maester, clearly. Presumably that's Girardis. Poor Girardis will one day be eaten by Sunfire, so that's not great. just like Rhaenyra herself. So
I mean, there's going to be a lot of casualties on that small council, any advisory committee in the days to come.
There's like 30 people in that room. You could like put an arrow over, dies. Like this one survives. Like there's Bela in the corner. She lives. You know.
Yeah, no, I'm picturing after some of those like documentary style movies where they like at the end of the movie they're like, this person did this, did that.
Like in this episode when they moved on from some subject and Beesbury wakes up and is talking about the previous subject. Like, no, we've moved on. I keep wanting to be like, Lyman, go back to sleep. You're gonna need your rest. You're gonna need your rest.
Hey, maybe Lyman's a dreamer. He's having dreams right then. He's just like dreaming that the Blackwoods have the upper hand. Yeah. So we get some of those Otto lines from early in the trailers. We play an ugly game. You have the determination to win it. And I wonder, does Otto find out what Larys did? Does Alicent tell him? And he's like, well, that's a good thing that we have someone willing to do the dirty work. Or is he like, well, that's surprising, but we can make use of that? Or I have no idea. I don't think Otto's going to throw that away, because you don't want that you don't want that opposed to you. Just like Alicent, we've made that point. It's like, well, if you don't have him on your side, he's against you, and that's that's terrible. Yeah.
Would Alicent tell Otto, and would it serve Larys for Otto to know? Because otherwise maybe Larys tells Otto or has Otto, and Alicent maybe wouldn't have shared that information.
Well, Alicent has clearly not shared what Cole told her about the relationship that he had with Rhaenyra, and that is a bit of wisdom and subtleness that that Alicent's shown herself capable of. And I wonder if going forward she would not do the same thing with regards to Larys.
Yeah. And I wonder what Larys will be doing at Driftmark. This is not a place he normally would have access to. I wonder if he's going to be greasing some palms, or maybe he already does have an agent or two there. Gotta think that he won't be idle. I wonder. I don't pin any of the murders that we expect on him, but I also don't know what the big surprise is, so maybe.
Also, should he not be at a funeral closer to home? Should he not?
Maybe that one already happened.
You know what I mean? Like, why is
good
he?
Point.
Should he not be in a state of mourning that theoretically would preclude him from?
But he can't be wearing black, though. No, I guess Alicent does wear black in this one too. But still.
She doesn't dress her kids in black, though.
No, she doesn't. They always wear green.
We don't really have black as like a color of mourning in general. Is my understanding in the series. Do we? Like, they don't really ever.
I mean,
do that.
Rhaenys is dressed in black.
She is dressed in black, but
I guess you're right. That's a
real
tradition.
World thing. We also had Rhaenyra in a white dress at the wedding, but
that wasn't the actual wedding, though. That was the.
It was the wedding. You're
right.
It
became the wedding.
It became the wedding, but it wasn't meant to be her wedding.
She may have been married in her house colors. I don't know.
Yeah.
So if that had gone the way they intended, I don't know.
Yeah,
but you're right. Still.
So they have had her in white, and they have people in black here, but not everyone is in black here. I mean, we saw even Aemond in his like orangey colored tunic and all that. So I think it's just a coincidence when someone's in.
Now, I didn't prepare this one, Ashea. This is kind of something I noticed right before. I don't know if you have the photo ready or not. Oh yeah, there's Rhaenyra. That is a little navy blue. You're right. No, that's navy blue. You're right. I thought it was black, but I think
the girls are in black. But
yeah, you're right. That's navy blue. So, which is their house colors are blue, so they just go with the darker blue for mourning. Does Aegon look like he's grinning a little bit during this funeral? Like his hair kind of hides it, but there's the scene when the sarcophagus is dropping in the water and they're saying the words. It kind of looks like he's almost grinning, but I can't tell because of his hair. And I'm like, whoa, that kid. He's not the best. Yeah, look at him there. Is he grinning or is he just kind of like?
I think he's sad. I think he's upset. I mean, not that he really knew Rhaena, but I mean, he actually probably did know Laena a little bit.
Maybe. Yeah.
Like I would guess that he had met her because they hadn't moved to Essos yet, and he's the oldest of them. Like, not that I expect him to have a close relationship, but anyways, I don't think he looked happy. I think he just looks upset.
There's people in the chat saying other examples of people wearing black. Sansa wore black, and Emma's funeral was all black. So okay, all right. So maybe maybe they just wear dark colors. I don't know. Another quote from Otto says, "I promise you, in time, you and I together will prevail." I assume he's talking to Alicent. Look, there's Larys. Yeah, he's got to be doing something on Driftmark, right? Like he's not just.
He's got to be doing something. He doesn't just show up for no reason.
Yeah,
he will be doing.
He's giving that nod, like, yes.
And also, now as Lord of Harrenhal, it's like you want to take the new car for a spin, right?
For the new burned castle.
It's a big gathering, and you want to show up for the first time as a Lord of Harrenhal.
That's true. He's fancier now. He's higher up. Yeah. Maybe the people will look at him a little differently now that he's a lord. I wonder if that matters to him. Like now, will they look at me differently now that I'm the Lord of Harrenhal?
Yeah.
Or
I mean, they will look at him differently as the Lord of Harrenhal. I mean, one question I have is. This is the weird one for the spoiler topic. It's really something I should bring up in a non-spoiler one, but is the idea of Larys getting married. He's now the Lord of Harrenhal. You would think in a normal world he would get married. We obviously know he doesn't get married in the book or anything, but if I'm speculating on a Monday stream with Sean, I'm pretty sure Sean's going to be like, well, when's Larys gonna have a bride? But I don't we won't see it. But
we wouldn't have an answer for him. It's like, I don't know why he's not getting married. He talks about that whole thing. Well, I guess part of it they set it up with that whole thing about having children. He's like, well, children are a weakness.
Yeah, that's
maybe that's set up for that or explanation for that. In retrospect, that works pretty well. I hadn't thought about it in that light at first.
Yeah. Well, part of this, I wonder if part of that is not why our fictional historians are so confused by Larys. They're like, what? Not a family man, never married, didn't seem interested. Like, I wonder if that is not part of the reason that there's every time his name comes up, you often see people will be debating what motivated Larys Strong for generations.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is not part of it.
Joe Magician says
doesn't seem to have that interest.
He's only got one woman he wants to marry. Yeah, Alicent, right? Catison. Yeah.
Well, that was something that came up.
Keep dreaming.
The red hair again. Yeah.
That was something that came up on Monday's stream. Was the idea of like Alicent getting remarried after Viserys dies, and obviously, again, as book readers, doesn't happen in Fire and Blood. I had never even considered the idea of her getting remarried afterwards. And yes, a lot of dowager queens wouldn't get remarried because that's how they have their station.
They cease to be queen dowager. Yeah.
But lots of queen dowagers do get remarried, so I do expect that will be a common theory for show only people once Viserys dies is who's Alicent gonna marry. Like, I think that will be on people's mind.
Maybe we'll get a scene where Larys floats the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, she'll say no if that happens, but yeah. And I wonder if we'll see him like promoted to official Master of Whispers rather than just Alicent's spy master or whatever.
Give this man a ball.
Give this man
Yeah.
Give him his quorum ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder. I'm picturing his just has
Sweat on
also
ball.
has the firefly on it or something. I'm like, what's his
the
gonna look
firefly
like?
ball,
Yeah.
Also, when are they gonna start selling these balls?
The balls.
I know.
Yeah, the
I want
quorum
them.
balls.
I need a collection of
They
them.
sell
to,
everything else.
Yeah,
Why
they
not
sell
these?
everything.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
I
yeah.
really, what I desperately want is for them to sell them as track balls because,
Yeah.
as you can see, we've shown off. We each are trackball fans, and I would love to just switch out my trackball with a custom one.
When I go through one of these mice about every year and a half, I have always have a spare, but I always save the trackball. I have a container full of old trackballs. So I could have
we could decorate our own. We could make our own history of Westeros balls using the trackballs. It's actually not a bad idea. I might look into the idea of
decorated
Do
trackballs.
do they have the stonemasons make a new ball every time a new person joins, or do you just get assigned the previous person's ball?
I think it's a little of both. I think it's a little bit of both because Alicent has Otto's ball. She's got the Hightower one.
So does Tyland Lannister have Corliss's ball, or
I
did
don't
Corliss
think so.
take his ball and leave?
Yeah, when he walked out, did he forget? He's like, damn it, I forgot my ball. I walked out without my ball. Damn it.
That is a good call, though. I am going to have to
Can't go
look and
back just for the
see
ball.
if Tyland's ball is, in fact, the same as Corliss's ball.
Is it a master of coin ball? Yeah, or has he got a nice red and gold, or crimson and gold one? You know, a Lannister's got to have his fancy
Yeah, because
custom ball.
Red, a gold ball, little lion on it. You know,
Can't
it's like-
stint when you're a Lannister.
yeah, clearly there isn't just one hand of the king ball because that was Otto's Hightower ball, which then switched to the Master of Laws. Like, what does Jasper Wild's ball look like?
It's iron. It's an iron ball.
Iron ball.
It's a hard, solid iron ball.
It can hardly lift it. It's like
Yeah.
he's always at council. He does.
Yeah.
He just leaves it there. So there's a big time jump coming up. Not as big as the first one, but just like the last one, we were able to figure out what's going to happen in this episode based on that it can't happen after the time jump. It's got to happen before the time jump. So let's go to talk about some of those things that just have to happen. Daemon and Rhaenyra get married. That's going to be this episode, y'all. That is... there we go. This scene was in the early trailers. Like, the first trailers we ever saw had this moment. So we were all like, book readers were like, okay, that's their marriage. They got blood. They're clasping hands with the blood coming out, like doing a Valyrian marriage.
Like
So this
blood
is not
on their lips, too.
Oh, there's blood on their lips, too?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Okay. Well, so they're being wed in blood and fire.
Mm-hmm.
There's a quote from this episode where she says, what is it? Fire is such a strange power. I wonder if that's related to prophecy stuff or to the marriage or both. That's an interesting one. I guess y'all can't comment on that. Y'all know already what that is. So I'll throw that out for the listeners. So with that, you'll get that beach walk from the early trailers. We see them together. You put one of those up. There's also one of them at night having a beach walk. So I guess there might be two beach walks.
Well, I think
Or maybe one of them is later.
I think they just color graded it to be a nighttime scene properly. Then this was
Yeah.
part of the promo shot, so it looks all nice and light. But actually, this is a nighttime walk.
Okay.
Here's the shot of that. It's the same shot, and they're in the same outfit or whatever. So
You can almost see how Daemon is weaseling his way in. Maybe worm with the Y. He's worming his way in. In the one scene, there's the shot that seems to be related to the Strong's dagger fallout because Jace and Luke look a little beat up, where he's standing protectively with Jace and Luke between him and Rhaenyra, and it's like he's positioning himself as their stepdad, isn't he? He's like, yeah, I'll help take care of these two. These are my blood, you know? And yeah, I mean, that makes sense. So, but also Aegon II and Helaena have to get married. That's got to be this episode, right? Like, that is maybe in response.
Does it have to be this episode, really? Like,
well, they have to have their kids.
Well, I mean, I still feel like they could.
Oh, they could happen during the time
get
jump.
married and have the
Yeah.
kids. Like,
You're
if we're
right.
already thinking they have to have the
Yeah.
kids, that is like, I don't think it has to be this episode.
I think it will because of the line Alicent says. There's a line from the trailers. I forget which trailer it is. I think it's the rest of the season trailer that
Like
they
the
put
Weeks
out earlier.
Ahead
The
or
Weeks
whatever.
Ahead trailer.
Yeah.
It says, Alicent appears to be on one knee, like she's petitioning Viserys, saying, let the people remember the ancient strength of House Targaryen, which to me says, let's marry our son and our daughter.
So it could be, I mean, it could be that the marriage is agreed to or proposed, but we don't see them get married.
Oh yeah, I'm not assuming we see the marriage, but
Okay.
just the notion that it's going to happen, so that when Jaehaerys and Maelor are just there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we have, it's not completely random to people. It could be in response to Daemon and Rhaenyra getting married. Like they find that out and they're like, oh,
I guess
Alicent freaks out a little more. And
I guess my other question is, do Jaehaerys, and Maelor have to have been born in the next time jump? How important is their age? Are their ages in relation to other people? Because
oh yeah, they're not
with
going to be
how much
dragon riders.
Yeah.
Or anything.
with how they've switched things around, they could just be born in the next. I don't know how important that is.
Well, there aren't any more time jumps.
I think-
that's
I
the
think-
problem.
Okay, you're right.
I think this speaks to our previous question, the thing we were wondering about, which was blood and cheese. I wonder.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I wonder when that happens, and I think that my sense is if we're thinking season 2, then it's maybe not that important.
So
that-
let me
Yeah.
just throw something out here for the listeners, not to interrupt you, Jason, but just to interject. Jason has not seen episode 10. I know some of y'all think that both of my
yeah.
friends here are spoiled, but they don't know everything about episode 10. So Jason isn't being cagey here. He doesn't know.
Yeah, I have not seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Legit does not know.
So yeah, so that we are just guessing on that one. So that's pretty significant. The whether it's going to be something they react to and say, okay, they're getting married, we
Right.
have to react to that. And Viserys should be in a bad mood about that. He should be angry about that. If it's similar to Fire and Blood, which will make Alicent's suggestion maybe more likely to pass. Well, we know it passes. We know it happens. So that maybe is the setup for it. Any other thoughts on what might go down at Dragonstone, or how this happens, or any fallout, any reaction to it that is relevant or worth mentioning?
Well, you said
It-
at Dragonstone, but at Driftmark.
Oh, at Driftmark. They get married at. I was saying,
Yeah.
would they get married at Driftmark?
Oh.
I'm guessing they go back to Dragonstone and get married.
Yeah, I would guess they get married at home on Dragonstone as well, but that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's not for sure.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Well, just the broader. You wonder how people will react because, Daemon had taken himself out of consideration basically by being such a wild card, and was obviously viewed as a threat who Otto and many others were constantly concerned about, the strength and power he was gathering as the leader of the City Watch, the fact that he could move throughout the Red Keep and seemingly all around the city, despite being one of the most famous and recognizable figures in the entire realm. He could move secretly through places. He could steal the egg, and no one could figure out how he was doing this. And we saw him listening to various deliberations over the course of the series. So I think I wonder how people will react, because
Mhm.
Rhaenyra already has a lot of enemies. Daemon already had so many enemies that the realm seemingly would have reacted very strongly had he been the heir. And so this is going to be seen, you would imagine, as a very, very threatening union. Very threatening to the other side.
I agree, especially because Daemon's been angling for her all season. There's so much. That's one thing I really
Yeah.
look for when like I said earlier, I rewatched the show with my mom. There's so much setup for this. Like from from Rhaenyra, the first shot of episode 4 is Rhaenyra touching her necklace that he gave her, and at her wedding, she's got the triple loop that matches the necklace, and then Daemon fondles the necklace a few times, and the way he puts it on her in the first episode, the first scene he's in, it's all just, it's like he was claiming her then, or at least making his intentions known, and then he gets pushed back on repeatedly, but now he's just gonna do it and ask for forgiveness. It's the old thing. Well, they can't stop me. I'm gonna do it, and then it'll be done. Weddings you can't back out of marriages in Westeros very easily, especially consummated ones.
So you were asking about how people will take the Daemon Rhaenyra marriage. We were talking about Alicent, but I mean, my question is how Corlys and Rhaenys will take this marriage, and how little Baela and Rhaena will take having a new stepmother, and how Rhaenyra will be as a stepmother, as someone who's had a contentious relationship with her own stepmother. I have to feel like she might try to be a good mother to these two girls. I hope that is my hope, is to see some good scenes of bonding within this family unit. Not this episode, but in the next episode.
Do we think Rhaena is going to be around, or is she going to be Rhaena of Pentos? I think they set that up because Rhaena's going to be in this episode for sure, but I think long term she may not be around. Like, we don't see her at the Black Council scene.
We do. She's
do?
there. Bela and Rhaena are there with her.
I only saw Bela. Well, I saw one, and so I assumed it was Bela.
Yeah, both Bela and Rhaena are with Rhaenyra and everyone on Dragonstone at the Black Council shot that we've seen.
As I thought that was set up for her when she said that kind of ironic line. She's like, "Are they going to kick me out?" And Laena's like, "What do you mean kick you out?" And she's like, "I don't have a dragon. They said they're letting you stay because you have dragons." And Rhaena becomes Rhaena of Pentos in the books because she stays at Pentos so long. She's the one that actually stays there the longest, rather than being kicked out. Which, of course, that was never going to happen anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously she goes to the Vale in the book, and has
a very idyllic life.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping that we do see some of her time in the Vale. I think they can dramatize it a bit, but I think that it would be good to have a change of pace in throughout this series, to not always just have these really intense scenes, but sometimes have like, oh, here's this girl who's being has all these suitors coming for her in the Vale, and here she's trying to hatch a drag. I don't know. I feel like there's room to do something interesting with Rhaena, even though she's pretty much off screen for most of it.
Yeah.
But I don't expect them to just write her off and just to not see her. So I expect them to give her something to do.
Yeah, especially if he's there in that scene. Yeah. That's notable.
Yeah.
A couple other important bursts that happened during this time. Gaemon Palehair should be born during the 6-year jump, presuming they keep that similar. Lorien Lannister, the son of Jason, who becomes Lord after Jason dies in the Riverlands, assuming that still happens. And Helaena Stokeworth, who isn't super relevant to Dance of the Dragons, but super interesting character because that's the woman who Aegon IV will lose his virginity to. And Aegon IV, let's not forget, that's Rhaenyra's grandson. The Aegon the Unworthy is Rhaenyra's grandson. And Helaena will go on to pimp her own daughter as Aegon IV's lover like a decade later. So she'll be his lover, and then her daughter will be his lover, and it's very weird. And of course, some people think that maybe that's his own daughter. Like, he's the father as well. So, the Targaryens do have queer customs, as Allison said.
Yeah, he is introducing Aegon IV to something that he will end up really liking and really enjoying doing.
He's like, this is great. I got to do this.
This is great. I'm going to continue to do this a lot.
A whole lot. Yeah.
A whole lot.
An absurd amount. So, so the death of Laenor, let's talk about that a little more. Poor Corlys and Rhaenys. Yeah, just brutal. In the books, they at least get a few months in between these deaths, but it looks like it's going to be just back to back here in this episode because it's
still realistically is a few months because probably the time it takes for Daemon to move from Pentos back to Driftmark, probably a little bit of time has passed.
There might be, maybe, yeah.
And not that that's much of a difference, but it's not just. I mean, although when Daemon flies, does Daemon have to? How does Daemon travel from Pentos to Driftmark? Is my question with his daughters. Do they sail by ship?
I think maybe, but they strap on. Maybe they can strap on his dragon, but they have to bring Moondancer.
Exactly, to bring Moondancer.
Probably ship then. Yeah.
Anyway, that's just random aside question, but
there's a note in the book about how at one point he brings Vhagar without Laena. Laena goes by ship, and Vhagar just follows. And so there must be some way for them to do that. She can. And we've seen them give commands, so maybe there's a command for follow or something like that. So who knows? But I'm sure they can work that out. So a few other things here. There's a shot of Corlys and Rhaenys looking surprised while in their pajamas, and this could be discovering Laenor's death or something else that happens at night. It could be related to we thought at first it was related to the Vhagar thing, but apparently there's different. Are they in different clothes?
Yeah, they're in
two different
clothes.
Surprised.
You see, Rhaenys is in her regular gown and her hair is down with Bela and Rhaena. And then there's another shot of them when they're in pajamas. So unless they took the time to change and put her hair back, it seems very clear to me that these are two different nighttime disturbances. Man, we can't get any sleep.
Why do people keep assassinating my friends in the night at my castle? What the hell?
What the hell?
Yeah. It's
gotta fire the guards.
Yeah, seriously. So there's a shot of Carl Corey, who in the book is the killer of Laenor, but it's suggested maybe he was paid or encouraged, or he looks pretty bitter. Looks pretty angry.
And
here,
he is,
doesn't
of course, Laenor's lover, who Rhaenyra said, "Come on, come with us." to
Careful what you wish
Dragonstone."
for. Yeah.
We'll need more swords, she said.
Yeah, maybe you didn't need that sword actually, but oops, how could she have known? Yeah, I'm not blaming her for that one, but it does. But it is, it is going to be connected somehow. We have a shot of maybe Daemon by the docks. This is the kind of robed cowl thing that we see him wear in a few other places, and there's maybe a hint of hair poking out from the side here, but
as you see here, it looks like
silver hair,
looks like shoulder length silver hair
poking
out
in there. But
and again, he's known to wear his murder cowl.
His murder cowl.
His murder cowl.
That should be an item in some RPG. Daemon's murder cowl.
It gives you +5 to sneak.
Yeah, in the books, Carl Corey is picked up by a ship, escapes on a ship, and is never seen again. But it's widely speculated he was killed, which is why he's never seen again. This very possibly is related to that whole business affair, and maybe so Daemon is involved. It makes sense for Daemon to be involved. I mean, he wants Rhaenyra, and the only way to get Rhaenyra is to kill Laenor. So and they've already made him the murderer of Rhea, which was just not even really floated in the book, which is fine, though, because...
Yeah.
Like, if you're good, I think I made this point elsewhere, if you're really good at conspiracies, if you're really good at pulling off secret plans, the histories will not reflect that. They're not going to be like, oh, we found out that he did. No, they would never know.
And we're seeing that over the course of this show is that the historians got a lot wrong. They missed a lot, which raises here's the thing I want to ask you because I've been thinking about it. Balon the Brave, stitched in the side, and then he just drops dead. What's up with that? It seems weird now, doesn't it?
Maybe I've thought about that in the past. Like, it's odd. There could be motivation. It's just kind of hard for me to figure what the motivation was. Like, why kill him? You know, that's the one part that gets me. Maybe because it sets up the Great Council, but how could they predict that would happen? You know, I don't know.
I agree with you. The motivation seems weird, but now, man, everybody loved him. He was, and there is no greater, of course, death sentence in this world than he seemed like the perfect ruler. The people loved him. Everybody agreed it should be him. He's a great warrior. That guy will die. But it's something I have not been able to stop thinking about since I've been watching this show and just comparing, the historians' versions to the way things actually happen. That's one that strikes me as just a little. It's weird.
It is a little weird, I guess,
and convenient.
I remain unconvinced, but I'm very open to it because, of course, it's not one of the things you can't write it off. You can't just say no way. There's definitely no poison or foul play involved. My problem is that I struggle to find the motivation, and for me, that's a problem.
Same. I agree.
But there's so much historical fog there. There could definitely be motivation. It could be
Viserys found motivation.
Yeah, maybe the Sea Snake did. He predicted that Laenor would be a candidate.
Right?
Who knows? Like, it's not really his MO that we know, but I don't know. Maybe he's just that sneaky. Again, the historians wouldn't know. If someone is that clever and gets away with it, there's no way. There's nothing going to lead to them. We wouldn't suspect them. So, Daemon, what I think is Daemon, has a line in this trailer saying, if you are to be a strong queen, your subjects must fear you. That's such a powerful line because, boy, is that a recurring feature of power games and power and styles of rulership in Westeros. It's that same rule by love or by fear, Tywin Lannister versus Robb Stark versus Daenerys versus Robert versus just different characters viewing this differently. What do you have to say about this, Jason? It's a classic, isn't it?
It's a classic. I'm hoping Rhaenyra doesn't go that way, but we'll see. We'll see what she decides to do, and what her particular definition of a strong queen will be. But ruling by fear seems like it would be a bad idea for Rhaenyra, and we'll see.
Yeah,
understanding what happens in the books, it's her run of ruling from King's Landing was marred, the books say, by her severeness. Yeah. So we'll see.
Her pride, her paranoia, which is increasing. Part of it is around her children. She's worried about them getting outed or what's going to happen to them or what else it might do. And Yeah, so I don't know that rule by love is an option for her. I think that's what we see a recurring theme is some people want, if they have the love, it's a great thing to use to leverage to rule through that. But if people don't love you, then you just, what choice do you have? You can't rule by love. Maybe you can do things to be loved, but
hire a PR firm.
Hire a PR firm.
I mean, I've been saying this the whole time. Why doesn't why doesn't the Crown have a state-sponsored mummers troupe that is out there on the streets doing the Crown authorized story of dramatization of like what's happening currently in Westeros? Why do you allow these street troops to be out here spreading vile rumors?
You're right.
That are true. That happened to me. True, but still are destabilizing.
It's the same thing. It's not what Viserys does. It's what he doesn't do. He just lets that stuff happen, you know. And his hand doesn't care. I guess neither of his hands have cared about that. I mean, they've like. Lionel was a great hand, but even he seemed blind to such things, I suppose. Or maybe he wasn't, and Viserys just ignored him. Yeah. That's entirely possible.
Or maybe during Lionel's years, his hand, that performance was not going on in the streets, and maybe he did crack down. Like we don't know what Lionel did. Just
that's a good point.
You know, that was during Otto's reign as hand.
Yeah. There's this line from Rhaenyra that speaks to pride and power rather than ruling by love. Everything that House Targaryen possesses is owed to it. That's a very haughty thing to say. Of course, we don't know the context for that. Maybe she's just talking to Daemon and they're just having a skull session over what to do next. But it is a little like, ooh, that's a pretty severe thing to say there. Like, really? Y'all just own everything or what?
It kind of reminds me of, the conversation she has earlier with Kristen Cole, where she's like, do you think that the people are going to accept me as their queen? And he says, well, they have no choice. It turns out the people do have a choice.
Yeah, they kind of do.
And they kind of do have a choice. They can decide not to do it and to take up swords and to oppose you. So while, the crown and the rulers, the ultimate authority, there needs to be an acknowledgement of how people feel within this system.
Yeah.
Or bad things will happen.
Right on. I agree with that. Well said. Well, let's look at a few things from last time. Some examples, things that we didn't talk about because they were spoilery, they were book stuff, or what have you. More careful what you wish fors. Because Rhaenyra leaves the capital, that's going to cause her to lose initiative when her father dies. When the Greens will get a jump on things, they're going to know when it happens and react to that. That's a pretty big deal. And but on the other hand, when Rhaenyra goes to taking her family to Dragonstone, that means larger and more dragons, which of course is going to lead to things like dragon seeds, which definitely isn't this season. But will be really fascinating to see the way they film those scenes, seeing people try to tame dragons and fail and succeed. Woo, that's going to be really fun.
It's going to be really funny. I think that the dragon seed sequence is going to be very, very funny.
I think we'll get Mushroom with his pants on fire.
No, I really do like the idea of just for them to just keep throwing dwarves into the background and into different scenes
and
so that people can theorize. Like, it's Mushroom. And it's like, that's a different dwarf. Yeah.
Let me ask you, the wisdom of going to Dragonstone. The king could die any day, seemingly. I understand you feel under threat. You feel isolated. Like you don't have a lot of allies at the capital, but if it was me, if I was Rhaenyra, I'd want to stay close. No? What do y'all think?
I would want to stay close, but I think she's racked with feeling so self-conscious and like she's under a magnifying glass, under a microscope or whatever. Like, I think it's that. It's not rooted in logic for her. Like, she says it to Laenor, like, this is the smart thing. But I think, no, it's that she feels deeply embarrassed. She feels mortified that she didn't realize, like, everyone knows.
Yeah, she was in denial about everyone else's level of denial. That's she was surprised, very surprised, like, wow, they really all think this. Like, it was the wool pulled off her eyes, and her reaction, like you said, I think is of embarrassment and thinking that this will stop the whispers. The less she's around, the less they'll whisper about her. But that's not true. Like, she's wrong. They'll keep talking. They might even talk more now that she's not there. So, I think it's a mistake. And Laenor points it out, but she uses his own line against him. And he's like, well, all right then, and so I do think it was a mistake. I don't think it's going to accomplish what she wants it to.
Yeah.
And there are severe negatives to it that are definitely going to hurt her.
Yeah, but it'll make her feel better in the short term.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
like she won't be,
Yeah.
she won't
That's true.
feel people whispering about her every time she goes anywhere in the castle. So I think it'll be better for her mental state in the short term.
And for her kids, like they won't be getting taunted and
Yeah.
teased about it
Yeah.
as much. Like,
Yeah, I mean, maybe like differently better for the kids, worse in
Yeah.
some ways.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you know,
Right.
there's some things that I think they would have been better if they weren't isolated on Dragonstone, and if they just better in some ways, worse in others.
like Viserys said, having them grow up
Yeah.
together is a good thing if they somehow get along, which they mostly were getting.
Right,
along.
they were. I mean, you see,
Right,
the season,
Lionel?
like,
Right, Lionel?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Right, Lionel?
This
Lionel's
is
like,
the stuff.
we hope so.
What was that? I saw a great meme where they're like,
Oh, yeah.
"Isn't this great? Watching my grandkids, our grandkids." What?
What?
What? Wait, our grandkids? Yeah.
But I mean, and it was working to a certain extent. I mean, you see, like it's such a sweet little moment to me when they're in the dragon pit before they play the Pink Dread prank, and
Yeah.
Jace is like being told to say Dracarys, and he turns his head and he looks back at his you know,
He looks at Aegon.
he looks at Aegon, and Aegon like gives him like a nod, like go ahead, and like
Yeah, Aemond is the odd man
Also
out there, not
yeah.
not the strong boy.
Also, it's very clear that Aegon was the ringleader of that whole
Yeah,
thing. Like there was
clearly.
a social communal life that those kids were enjoying, separate from the kind of pressures that are being piled on them by their families and the different factions that their families support. Like it's clear that all the bullshit aside, they did hang out. Like there was a chance for those kids at some point, and certainly at that point, it looked like there was a chance for them. Yeah, Aemond was the one they all made fun of.
Yeah.
They all were united in making fun of him.
My mom totally nailed that too. When she saw him try to go for Dreamfire and fail, she's like, "Oh, he's gonna get that really big dragon." Isn't he? And I was like, "Nice, Mom." Dang, she got that. She hasn't read Fire, but she has read A Song of Ice and Fire, but not Fire and Blood, just for reference there. Another sad moment, y'all. Vhagar and Caraxes play fighting foreshadows their real fighting. Oof. Especially because it's over water to start. Like he's dragging his tail in the water, like a little God's eye foreshadowing there. Ooh, man. Yeah. And he puts his hands up in the air. It's like when he's gonna jump to over to Aemon's saddle. Like next time we see him do that, he's gonna have his sword in hand and leap. It's like, wow. Yeah, that is like they do that so well. These just nice, cool moments that are actually foreshadowing horrible, terrible things. If you don't think about it, you'll miss it. Yeah. So like Aemond is really like there's a bit of irony here. Otto talks about how at the beginning how Daemon is we can't let him, he's like the next Maegor. It's like your grandson Aemond is a lot more like Maegor than Daemon is. Right down to being taunted about your dragon and then going to claim the big one, about having no sense of humor, about being like a little bit psychopathic. He's not as big as Maegor. That's one particularly big difference. But still, what do you think about that comp there, Jason?
I think that there's a lot of truth to that, and a lot of hypocrisy too, in that how fickle the kind of this process can be at times, because Daemon is cast aside because of really like how recent the memories of Maegor kind of are, and then by this time, like we're not thinking about that with regards to Aemond. Surely,
no,
like
not.
that's faded away. But like a lot of the the people who are around maybe have some living memory, or their parents would have told them stories of the time of Maegor, and so that was a present danger, I think, with Daemon.
Yeah, and it was a good comp. Otto wasn't wrong to make that point. I think.
Yeah,
I mean, in a vacuum, anyway. Like, there's other factors too. Like, he's wrong to not point out other angles of what's happening at that time. But yeah, I mean, and it's ironic too because Aemond is going to go on to do awful things to Harrenhal's people. He's going to make a pile of heads that kind of reminds us of the pile of heads Maegor made of the faithful, many of whom were complete innocents, not faithful, just people that were in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's going to really backfire, and I really wonder how that's going to play out in the long term. This is not a season one thing at all. Obviously, the strong Harrenhal thing doesn't happen in this season, but Alicent, as a confidant of Larys, her own son goes and kills all the other strongs. Like, is that going to matter? Like, where Larys just shrug and say, "Oh, well, I don't care," or
I mean, he seems to not care.
Yeah.
Right? It's like he's as amoral a figure as we have seen, like is notably not interested in at all, almost, in the survival of his house.
Yeah,
like
he just doesn't care. Yeah.
He's not invested in it in any kind of way. He's not trying to keep the legacy going. He's not trying to put create heirs. He's not thinking about that at all. He's thinking about like everything that he's doing, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We've not seen many figures like this.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, I'm very curious how they're gonna handle all that, and I have faith that they will handle it well.
I'm curious how they'll show Alice Rivers with Larys Strong, what their relationship is like. Because again, Alice Rivers is a bastard of House Strong, and so.
Could be Lionel's daughter.
Yeah, that's whether that's the case in Fire and Blood or not. I think it would make the most sense in House of the Dragon for her to be Lionel's bastard daughter, and thus Larys his half sister. So you have to wonder what Larys would think about her and what she would think about him and about the death of her family and all that. So that'll be super interesting to see.
It's a small.
I wonder if we get.
Go ahead.
I wonder if we get some context just about her background. Like, how much we learn about her. That would be really cool.
I guess they won't introduce her till next season. I would be pretty sure.
Right.
That.
Yeah, one would imagine.
But it'll be neat to see that and how they frame it. Yeah, because they could make her Lionel's daughter
or sister,
or even maybe
could
even
literally
Harwin's, but that makes her a little young. But
that would make her too young. I think she could be Lionel's daughter, or she could be Lionel's bastard sister too. Because again, the whole thing with Alice is that she looks kind of timeless, ageless. We're not really sure how old she is, and so for sure. She's popular in the fandom for being the MILF that Aemond is with. So, people will legit be disappointed if she is young and it's not Aemond with, this older woman. I'm just saying, I'm one of those people that would be disappointed, but that is the impression that people have of Alice. But again, we just don't know how old she is. We just don't know.
In this case, the M doesn't stand for mom. I'd like to F. It's magician. I'd like to F. Yeah.
By the way, Breakbones, Harwin Breakbones should have been Break Door.
Or can't break door.
Yeah, can't break door. I guess he wasn't that strong.
Yep. So I'm very curious about that. I really wonder what's going to happen with all that. Yeah, I wonder too, this foreshadowing, if there's going to be any other ways that plays out with Helaena, coming back to Helaena, and whether she'll see any of these other things. She's already tuned into what her brother is doing. If she sees, we talked about just foreshadowing Blood and Cheese, but there's so many other things she could see. She could
see what happens to her brother, to Aegon, her brother husband.
She could see so many. It's just really wide open, which is one of the things that makes it really smart choice by the showrunners. They know we love to talk about stuff, and the wider open the topic, the more we'll talk about it. And of course that's meant for deep fans, because casual show people aren't going to have any idea what that line means. So
they will after this episode.
They will after this
episode. And so probably the theorizing will blow up even more.
Oh, for sure. They've done a great job of integrating something that both the deep fans and the casual fans can enjoy in ways that allow them to talk to each other, which is really, really, really cool.
I bet
stuff is wonderful.
I bet Ryan Condal is good at walking tightropes.
Oh yeah,
I just believe that about him uncritically. Interestingly,
and is very, very much a super nerd about all this stuff. When I got to talk to him, really is a deeply read guy on this.
Yeah, I
totally agree.
I was happy to hear him say in a recent interview that Feast for Crows is his favorite book and A Song of Ice and Fire. It's my favorite too.
Boom.
And so I was like, okay, that's great.
One thing missing from the show that is a rare thing they cut out, but to be fair, it's barely in the books, is that Lionel has two daughters who are Rhaenyra's ladies in waiting, which would have created a real interesting, Strongs on both sides kind of thing. Did she marry them into people in her household, or what? Because they're just not going to happen.
I would have imagined that she used her Strong ladies in waiting as a cover when she was hooking up with Harwin. It's pretty easy to be sleeping with a guy when a little awkward.
They had to be in on it, right?
Yeah. Her ladies have to be in on it, so it makes sense. That is definitely a disappointment, but I understand they can't just fill out the cast like that.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like it would have been possible to just show a gaggle of ladies around Rhaenyra, and look, one of them is in the strong colors, and then we can fill in those blanks ourselves. Just something they've done a good job of doing. It's just like they know that it makes us so happy to see like Lord Caswell. That like there's no great significance there. It didn't take much no skin off of their teeth.
The Joanna Swan mention, the Black Swan, like things like that. Yeah, that's so bad. That's such a big deal. And it actually does play into the plot. Johanna Swan, just as an aside, like that, they fighting over her is what gets Shirako Lohar killed. And he's the admiral for the Triarchy. So it's like she is a little relevant for this story.
But no, those strong daughters are not particularly relevant, but they are relevant. And like, well, what does Larys' family think about everything? He has more family. Like they weren't all, or did they also go home? Like, I don't expect us to ever know.
Yeah.
So
because in the book they go to Dragonstone earlier. It's actually maybe a nod to that when Rhaenyra says, she's like, "You're going, so we should go." Laenor says, "So we're going to Dragonstone," and she goes, "We should have gone much earlier." Which is like it's not a nod to book readers, because in the book she goes to Dragonstone like 4 or 5 years earlier, and like Harwin and her have a relationship on Dragonstone rather than it's all plays out at King's Landing. So it's a little more sneaky.
Yeah, she would have been able to have a little bit more of a casual time with Harwin on Dragonstone, so it's a little sad for sure that we didn't get
with the sisters there too, and we didn't
could
get
have
that.
relaxed a little, not just been holding your breath the whole time.
Yeah. Couple of last thoughts. We've covered just about everything we wanted to cover, but there's a few little lingering things. It just occurred to me that Laena is really like her father. I hadn't thought about it before, but the way she's like, I want to go out and make my way in the world and take what's mine and be a dragon lord and do all that stuff. It's like, that's pretty much what the Snake's vibe was. He's like, I knew what I wanted and I went to go take it. And
Viserys, when he's talking to Laena, he's like, oh, is that what your father told you? So you can tell that Corlys was really talking to her about the way of the world.
Yeah, and he's like, she's like,
I mean, kind of Corlys is, in a large way, his strength and his weakness, because as this great captain, used to being in command, used to taking charge, you say, and taking the reins when danger strikes. At the same time, is not a person who could hear other opinions.
Yeah.
Like he took a course and that was kind of
I think it's not mentioned in the show. Maybe it's only hinted at, but he wasn't born the first son. He had an older brother that died and didn't have kids or something. So at first, that's part of why he calls himself a second son. Is technically he was, even though he inherited all the stuff. It just when he was younger, he didn't expect that, I guess, and ended up with both. He inherited everything and had built up all this wealth on his own with his family's ships, or just one ship, or whatever he did.
We obviously don't see the scene of Laena claiming Vhagar. But I have to wonder the circumstances. Like, did Corlys take her on a little field trip? Like, let's go see about this. Like, did she? I don't think she would have just gone to do that alone. It seems to me like something that Rhaenys and Corlys had to encourage and be part of their 15-year-old child trying to claim like this massive dragon, and they had to approve, right? I would
maybe, unless she ran off on her own, like Aemond will. But I think
that's pretty far
it's
to
very
run
possible.
off on her own,
I
considering
agree.
where Vhagar is in relation to where she would have been at that time, which was probably on on driftmark, or maybe I don't know. Anyways,
what do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting because we get that earlier scene when Laena is taking her little walk with King Viserys when they're potentially going to be betrothed, and she's questioning him about Balerion. What was that like? The last person to ride him. And then they're talking about Vhagar. Where is Vhagar? And she mentions that some of the tradespeople in Spicetown hearing the songs of Vhagar, suggesting again that Vhagar is at least hanging out on Driftmark or in that area. So I do wonder, in my mind, she put those clues together and just happened to figure out where Vhagar was nesting, or find the place where Vhagar was migrating. And what we know of Targaryens, when they try to bond with dragons, they basically succeed every single time. So part of the confidence of youth to do it, as I'm sure we're going to see, and I would imagine she did it. My sense is she did it without telling anyone.
Okay,
She saw a chance and she took it. Yeah.
Her parents might have been like, no, if she had Yeah, like
Yeah, I think she saw her opportunity and she just grasped
Yeah,
it.
I get the impression
tend to lean
Rhaenys
that
would have
way.
said no.
Yeah, I tend to lean that
Mhm.
way. Yeah, I wonder. I think that maybe she did it on her own, just because that's kind of the way they've portrayed her. But yeah, it may have been part of Corlys's ambition, or a little of both. Stannis Baratheon in the chat says, "Can we compare and contrast Corlys's ambition to Tywin's?" Yeah, there is a lot of parallels there. I mean, I think personality wise, there's some stark differences. Or Lannister, Velaryon differences.
Yeah.
Because he's not as ruthless, he's not as cold, he's not as harsh, but he tries to marry his daughter to the princess or to the prince and all these other things, like the similar, like Tywin wanted that royal marriage with Aerys and gets rejected for another powerful house, and he gets real mad about it and
tries to ignore his children's proclivities in terms
denial of bastardy.
The incest versus being gay or whatever.
Yeah, but also Sea Snake's ambition kind of comes out differently as Tywin's, but it is ultimately a very similar thing, to be as close to the crown as possible and the richest man in the realm at the time, right?
I think the difference is primarily in their ability, in Tywin's ability to plan in multiple directions. You know, when Tywin went to do something, he set it up with multiple fail safes so it would succeed. You know, and to your point, was ruthless when he decided that he was going to move, so that if he was going to say wipe out several rebellious houses, he was going to do it all the way and not waste the effort to do so. Whereas you feel like while Corlys is quite ambitious, very ambitious, he also, I think, doesn't quite have the eye for finding collaborators and finding the thing that collaborators would want from him that he could provide to them, so that he could really make sure that his plans happen. I mean, reaching out to Daemon is smart.
He's not quite the political operator Tywin is, I suppose.
He's not the operator. Tywin would have reached out to Daemon and would have reached out to others and would have made sure that all of those things are supporting whatever plot that he is doing.
Sea Snake's maybe a little above board more. Tywin's a little more underhanded.
And I think, I think it's the fact that he's a sea captain, and when he says something, that goes. That's it. We're doing this. Whereas Tywin is used to, whereas Tywin is used to building consensus and managing a realm in the mental absence of a ruler. He's used to managing on a larger scale.
That's a good point. The whole naval, you're on a ship, the captain's word is absolute. I mean, Tywin could say that about the people that he follows, but that's just not the way he does it. Even though he kind of aims that way, he puts on the front of letting people talk and getting their opinions, even though, as Tyrion says, he's usually already made his decision by then. He just wants to let them talk so they can feel bought in. But still, that's still the method that we don't necessarily see the Sea Snake do that. Cool. So that's a great take. Yeah. One thing that I think that maybe could have been emphasized more, I didn't notice it until afterwards, it's a bit of a parallel, bookending the last episode, was the way the episode starts with that ominous blood trail that Rhaenyra is leaving behind her as she leaves Alicent's quarters. It's just passing by Kristen Cole, and it's like, okay, blood is spilled, a blood trail between Alicent and Rhaenyra. That's pretty symbolic, with Kristen Cole standing right there. And Laena, it wasn't really emphasized, but she should have had a trail of blood following her when she left the birthing room and walked towards Vhagar. So that would have been, a little way to parallel things there.
And Daemon, pay attention. How does this woman get past? How did she get past everyone? What did she just put a wide receiver, juke her out on and then spin around the?
She
the
threw on his cowl, his sneaking cowl, real fast. Where did he go? Where did she go?
Well, this case was like a suicide cowl, not so much.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, that was pretty smooth. That's the sneakiest pregnant lady ever.
Yeah.
Are you sure she's a dragon rider and not some faceless woman? That was really
faceless
sneaky.
Man, yeah. Little Bravosi blood in there.
Patrick McGuire sends a super chat, says, sorry if I missed this, but do you think Vhagar was accurately portrayed size-wise? Hard to tell. I guess so. She's awfully large. I mean,
awfully
damn big, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she looked huge when Laena rode her. She looked huge when Laena was right in front of her to me, and she looks somehow even bigger in the shot of just her foot there in the trailer, though, in terms of if you're wondering accurately. There's a difference between like accurate to the books and consistent within the show, which is something that like, I mean, that's a hard thing to like. It was really interesting watching the House the Dragons Built featurette, because they showed how they used like augmented reality technology, like AR technology, to use like an iPad or whatever and put it in front of where Laenor was, and then they can see the scale of what Vhagar looks like. So they do their best to make it make sense in relation to characters, but that is a tricky thing to get to handle. Like, you know, sometimes you just have to orient yourself, like, okay, the size of Laena's head is the size of one of Vhagar's eyes always, and as long as that's the case, it's right, or something like that, you know.
Wow. Yeah, and we saw all those ropes all over Vhagar, like as if they were like a way to climb up on her because she's too big. You can't get up there any other way. And as well,
and nobody's gonna help you.
Yeah.
Like, somebody help me get on Vhagar. No.
Aemond's gonna look even smaller next to her. Like, he's not even an adult. So that'll be really interesting. What's that?
Madeline R says the bleeding doesn't start until the afterbirth is out. So conceivably, Laena would not have a trail of blood behind her because she didn't get through birth and afterbirth. She killed herself before she actually gave any birth at all.
I mean, she had her dress was bloody, so I'd assume there'd be a little bit of blood, but maybe not a lot.
Yeah, maybe not quite to that extent. So that's interesting. Thanks for that.
That is good to know. Yeah, as the ins and outs of this, don't know much about. Yeah, clearly.
We've never gone through that.
Joe Magician says Jaehaerys did the sending out of septas and septons to preach Targ exceptionalism. Yeah, he did. That's another example of Viserys not doing things that. Yeah. Even if it's been done before, he didn't even take the like lesson from his forebear. But that's a recurring theme here. None of these characters were properly prepared to rule. Viserys wasn't raised to rule. He was the second son of. I mean, he maybe was going to be the eventual ruler, but his father was, like you said, he'd only been hand for like 6 months or a year.
Yeah, I mean, they say, you know, when you read about Aenys's rule, he's like, wait, they don't just love everything we do. He seemed very surprised when people were like, well, we gave your father that, we let him do that because he conquered us and he had 3 dragons and we knew that we would die, but you were not so sure if we're going to let you do the things that you're trying to do. So he seemed very, very confused that, and back to your point about not being prepared to rule, I think that that's something that the Targ should have worked out.
Yeah, I mean, even Jaehaerys wasn't prepared to rule, and Alysanne, that just worked out great. They just were good at it. They were naturals, you know. But everyone else, Maegor, and even Viserys and Rhaenyra, Alicent, and even Alicent. I mean, when was she taught to rule? I mean, her father taught her to marry the king, you know. That's like, but what comes after? Not much instruction there that we see, but maybe some of it was off screen. But we don't get the impression that a lot of preparation was given to these.
No,
not at all. It's not like there's also like a handbook, a textbook on how to rule at this point. Maybe there's some.
Seven Kingdoms are still relatively new.
Yes, they're new. Yes, maybe there are some like texts on the art of legislate. Like maybe
that's what Damon was looking for.
Yeah,
in that
I mean, listen, there's a similar pressing issue in my mind, and I've apologies to anybody who's heard me complain about this. But I really feel as if the Crown has been lax on the issue of the secret passages. They've existed now for 70 or 80 years. Can we need to map these? These need to be understood so that people often working against the interest of the ruler are seemingly the only people who ever know how to use them at any given time. And as we have seen, they cause a lot of problems throughout the history of the Seven Kingdoms.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that they weren't mapped like immediately after Maegor, Maegor getting toppled is crazy. Jaehaerys, that should have been day one. Let's map the fucking passageways.
Well, what Jaehaerys would have known. I mean, I assume he would. I just have to raise the question: would Jaehaerys have known?
Well, how did Daemon learn about them?
And how did Daemon learn? Yeah, exactly. Like what?
Maybe he just like leaned on a bookshelf.
And he mapped them. He's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I know. Imagine finding that out if you're Rhaenyra. You're like, there's been a door in my room this whole time. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a clever way to tie in the comment about Maegor when Otto was like, he'll be another Maegor. And the Maegors would have built those passageways. Well, Daemon is literally in that passageway listening to him say that. I was like, well, you're not entirely wrong. He laughs at his brother saying, Daemon doesn't want the throne. He's like, might give myself away by laughing too loud in the secret passageway. But alas, nothing of the sort. Okay, I think that does it for today. I think we've had an excellent show. I think we are all prepared for episode 7. If you all have any final questions, now's your last chance to sneak them in. We'll start saying some thank yous.
I'm so excited to see Aziz's reaction to the next episode more than normal because I'm not normally spoiled on something such a major change that Aziz isn't. So,
Jason's pulling his hat down like, yep, me
you
too.
did a very good job, Jason, of keeping mum.
Yeah, you're a real pro, my friend. Cool. So, folks, we are going to be guesting on Jason's X-Ray podcast this coming Wednesday. Yep. The episode won't be out Wednesday, but that's when we're recording it.
It'll come out Friday. We'll record it Wednesday. It'll be out Friday. So if any of y'all are listeners to that and want to submit questions to the Ask the Maester segment, we're going to have 2 of the best ever do it, answering your questions.
And if you haven't checked out X-Ray, well, this is the perfect time to do so. Your perfect bridge into their wonderful world they've got over there. And of course, you can
look up X-Ray Vision on any of your podcast feeds of choice. I don't think you're exclusive, so wherever.
And you cover a lot of different fandoms on X-Ray, don't you?
That's right. Star Wars, Rings of Power, etc. All the Marvel movies, all that stuff.
You brought History of Westeros up on one episode, and I had a random friend of mine that was like, you were mentioned on X-Ray Vision podcast. I was like, oh, yeah, Jason's a friend. It's nice of him, but like, they were like, oh my God, you were mentioned by Jason.
We were like, oh.
I mean, as I've mentioned many times, like, you guys are the best.
Oh.
I have been doing it a long time. Whenever I'm like, have a question, Aziz is the first person I text, like, hey, what are your thoughts on this?
We have texted a few times.
I've been listening to your podcast for a long time before I was covering this stuff, and you guys are great.
I do remember that. Yeah, you reached out to us a long time ago.
I still
appreciate that.
Yeah. You were one of our earlier iTunes reviews.
That's right. Yeah, back when we only had a few.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So also check him out on the official Game of Thrones House of the Dragon podcast. Official. You all see it advertised when you watch the episodes. So you should have seen ads for it by now. But you'll have some fantastic guests. Interviews. The interviews they're just pure fire. Yeah. And you and Greta get along really well. Your
thank you so much.
Your banter is excellent. Yeah. Good stuff. Also, thanks to anyone who came live and attended this live stream and added to the comments, added to the questions. If you sent a super chat, we really appreciate that. A lot of good takes in the chat as usual. You really help fuel our commentary here. It adds a lot. I
can say, not a single person was a jerk and tried to spoil people
well behaved,
today.
y'all. All right, shout out for that. I appreciate that.
Because I was worried that I was going to be like furiously like delete.
Yeah, I was slightly wary of looking because I look over at the screen. Sometimes y'all see me look to the left or maybe to the right. It looks like from where I'm sitting, and I squint. That's me like looking at the chat, from over here because I don't have my glasses on. But and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be looking at that. But yeah,
but it's been fine. Y'all have been very well behaved. Thank you.
Great job, y'all. Appreciate that. So if you want to check us out elsewhere, don't forget you can watch the replays on Spotify if you're catching the video or on YouTube. And if you want to watch the podcast version or listen to the podcast version, rather, that would be on as well on Amazon Music or on Google or on Spotify or iTunes, all the good places there, wherever you catch podcasts.
I want to say one point from Reaver 14. The servants have to be able to clean those secret passageways and tunnels because otherwise they'd be covered in cobwebs. It's a great point from Reaver 14.
Someone's got to clean those.
Someone's cleaning there.
Yeah.
Notable.
Yep. Oh, they're just too careless, those Targaryens. They'll just let anyone in those tunnels, any old piece of blood or cheese, Joe Magician, here's what happens in the episode. Vhagar gets shot by a ship.
Stop you.
That's right. So thanks again, everyone. Also, thanks to our contributors who add to our podcast via music and art. Thanks to Michael Klarfeld. Thanks to Jesse Koval and Joey Townsend. Thanks to Kevin McLeod. Thanks to Bran Winslow, aka Bran the Builder, for our current and excellent House of the Dragon preview/review music and intro. It's pure fire and blood. And enjoy the episode tomorrow, everyone. Have fun, and we'll see you all on Monday and later weeks for the rest of the season. We still have a good 4 episodes left, so still quite a bit to go. And,
our guest next week is Joanna Robinson, correct? Yeah, that's our guest.
We're bringing in some real heavy hitters.
Yeah, I can say the guests for the rest of the season are now confirmed. So we've got Joanna Robinson next Saturday, then Chloe and Eliana of Girls Gun Canon the week after that, and then Kim Renfro of Insider and other podcasts and Cast of Kings, and that's our the rest of the season covered for us, and we'll have a review where we have a bunch of people on, of course.
Yeah, and we'll probably do some character stuff after. This season's been so good, we'll keep talking about it after it's over. Unlike Game of Thrones season 8, which we kind of just stopped. I mean, we didn't hate it, but we just didn't feel motivated to cover it extra after it was done. We're like, let's go start our reread. That's what we did. Valar reread.
But you're right. After this, we might want to take a little time to dig into some characters and view. We might take a little time before we go back to Valar reread us.
Yeah. So anyway, or maybe we'll do both. We'll see. We'll work that out. Y'all feel free to send us your suggestions on how you think we should proceed, and we'll take that under advisement. But until next time, Valar reread us and Valar rewatch us.